I'm more than you.
You can see. I can hear that you are more than me. That's very good.
Madam, you are laughing.
Yeah. You are perfect today.
All right. So
Perfect. You could even hear the sound there.
Good evening, Mr. Chan.
Sure, now
so
Catching.
let us start. So I said I'm going to run through the code that we did previously, and then thereafter we are going to introduce one more concept on the tables. Last time I talked about column spanning and also row spanning. So that's what we'll look at. Mr. Chanda. Mr. Chanda is raising the hand. I don't know what issue he has. Okay, so basically, when you want to ask a question, let me just maybe bring this to your attention. If you want to ask a question during the presentation, on your Zoom panel, on your Zoom control panel, at the bottom, there is where you are going to see the emoji symbol.
Sure.
The symbol
Okay.
for emojis, the emoji. When you click there, you are going to see where it says raise your hand or raise hand. So when you raise your hand, you are able to see that you want to ask a question, and then I'll give you a chance to speak.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, at this moment, for controlling the feedback and everything else, would love to have mics muted so that it will remain with only one. When you want to talk, you can always unmute your mic and raise the hand and mute your mic, then speak. So you should be able to learn those. Those are important principles when it comes to learning either through Zoom or through Skype. Okay, so we continue, Madam. Okay, so we continue. Previously, we were looking at tables, and in this lesson, we are just focusing on how you can span columns. So it's supposed to be columns here, not rows. How you can span columns in a table. So how did we do it? As usual, line 1 here, it tells us the document declaration statement of our HTML and look a bit on how this format is. It's in capital letters. You may understand that capital letters and the small letters, lowercase letters, in this declaration have different meanings. You may take a research on that one to find out what the small letters mean and what capital letters mean. Then we have our, sorry, here there's a problem. This doc type must not have been there, but don't worry, it's still going to, still runs. Okay, fine. So I have, the next is our HTML here. Okay, so by standards, the HTML has to be a parent to the head. Okay, the head has to be a child to the HTML. So that's a principle that we must also appreciate here. Then we have, within the head, we have the title. This title, like earlier on explained, just appears on our browser as the page name. Then here I've introduced a new element here known as style. This style helps us to bring in the CSS aspect inside our HTML document. And if that is brought like this, it must be always be enclosed in the head, like you have seen. So the head is here, and the head closes here, and in between here, we have the style that does some styling to some aspects or some elements of this particular web page that we are designing, or that we are writing, that we're coming up with. Now, what does this do? The style, of course, starts with the style tag, as this opening tag, and it has the style tag as its closing tag, making the style element for us. Now, here, you have to specify which particular elements do you want this style to affect. Where do we need to have some changes? In this case, we realize that we need to have some changes on the body. So the body has to take some changes, has to be styled, has to be worked on, and give some kind of, some look that we would desire. Then here, we also want to include the table. So when we say body, table, we are saying all these elements that are in this list are supposed to receive this defined styling that we have put here. The body means anything that we have typed from the element of the body, starting with the opening tag of the body, anything in between here up to the closing tag of the body has to receive the styling we have defined here. And this styling I've defined here, max width tells us about the maximum width of the page. Previously, I asked the question on the width. I'm glad that Madam Miriam had answered that the width is simply probably the size from left to right, not from top to bottom, okay, according to her explanation. I think I agree with her, so we make it that way. Then the margin I explained that this is the space left on the right side of the page and on the left side of the page. And the margin here is put at auto. Now, when we say margin auto, what are we trying to say? We are saying that this particular margin, it is going to be automatic in relation to the width. So in short, we are saying our body will be 500 in terms of its width, and the margin should be automatic in respect to the width. The space left on the right and the space left on the left of the page has to be in relation to the width that I've defined here. Our area clarify more on that one when we go to the web page. Right. So coming here, the background. We want the background for the body, but equally to be in percentages. We explain more when we reach to that particular end. Then the width here. Take note of something here. The width which is here 90%, and there's a width here 500 defined here for the table only, but for the body still stands. Then here we introduced our table, where we are first starting with the table rows, which are actually the headings in this case for our table, defined by the element th, table head. So we have 4 headings here, all enclosed in the table heading element. Thereafter, we have our data. So our data is actually another row, except that the data itself is defined by the table data element that we have here. Then here, we introduce a third row where we applied our column span, which we say it must span 4 columns. And the columns, I said, are justified here, or rather are indicated by the table headings. So we have table heading number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. The table headings are equally the columns. I remember Mr. Chibale asking that since we have TH for the heading, are we going to have TC for the columns? Unfortunately, I said no, because the columns are already defined by the table headings. So 4 columns. Here we showed how the column span works. To show that it works, we had to define another column here for the data, so that we understand and see physically how this column here is spanning all the 4 rows. But today, I want us to look at the row span running across all these other columns that we have, and this means column spanning. And in the language of Madam Miriam and that of Excel, we are saying this is cell merging. So we have merged cell 1, cell 2, cell 3, cell 4 together. Okay. So as we go on to the next level of our lesson, could we have any question from anyone before we proceed to the next level of our lesson? I'm waiting for hands. There's any hand? I'm waiting for any hand if there's any question. Do we have a question? Okay. So it simply means there are no questions. The medium is indicated by indicating a thumb there that there is no She's okay with everything. So we proceed. We proceed. So we are here now. So to show the row spanning, we have to have another data table here, or data row put. Okay, that is important. So we have the TR in between of the TD. Okay, so we have the name there. So the name is Peter. The name is Peter. So okay, Peter is in grade 12. And the class is D, and the status is prefect. We add another row here. So table row, we add the data there. So, and we have so Lois. So we may wish to add another here. We wish to add another okay, so we can add Judy. Who is in grade 13, obviously doing GCE. Then we add the class is, since it's afternoon, can be F for failing. Then this is just pew. Or maybe monitress. Okay. I think we can see now here that we have some pupils that have been added here. Okay, Peter has been added, Lois has been added, and Judah has been added. So we have a lot of these students here that have been added here. Okay, so now we want to span the rows of Peter and Miriam. We want to see what happens on there. Okay, so we'll get back to the code. Then, to span the column, for example, for the row for Peter, okay, we are going to put row span here like this. And then how many rows do I want to span for Peter? Let me try 2 rows and save that. And then let's see what happens there when we span for Peter here. So we get back to there, okay, takes up 2 rows. So meaning that Peter here, probably in this case, signifies that Peter is in charge of, Peter's in grade 12, however in charge of Lois, who also is in grade 12, okay, and 12E. But you see that our table has been somehow disfigured here. The thing which probably would not like to have, okay, another row here, where we'll have our, let's say our TD, so we'll have our TD there, and in between here, okay, let's us put, we are going to span the row, okay, by 2. Then inside here, we write friends, and see, we write friends. So I'll get rid of this one. Okay. So I've done the spanning here, and we have put friends in there. Let's see what happens on that one when we refresh. So here is my work. When I refresh that one, okay, we can see that we have friends here. However, not spanning any rows here. But does it? Yes, it has spanned just, okay, it's not spanning any column rather here, okay? We have not spanned any column here, okay? Simply because we are doing it in the data here. So we are simply adding a row on its own, okay? But let us put this one as a th. Okay, do not be confused as much. Th. I'll save this one. Then I go back to there and try to run this one. Okay, still more, it's not doing any changes for us. Okay. Let us span 3. Let's see if the 3 is going to make changes for us there. Okay, the 3 now is making changes for us. So here, the first row we are spanning is that same row where we have, the first row we are spanning is this one. First column we are spanning a row that with this one. This row here is spanned. Then the next row that is spanned is, so I can't see Peter introduced here. There is no TR. Okay. I think that's better now. Okay. Before I explain, let me just see the changes. What has happened, because okay. Okay, so TR. Okay, I'm seeing a problem with my code. So TR. It's like the TR is not closing properly. So table heading, okay, it closes there, closes here, closes there, closes here, closes there, closes there. Okay, fine. Let me just confirm the changes before I explain anything. Okay, good. Okay, so getting back to here, so I was saying the rows we are spanning here are this row here, row number 1 is being spanned. Then another row that's being spanned is this one here, it's being spanned. Then lastly is this one here, making all the 3 rows spanned. Okay, because I've chosen 3 rows. So all these rows are spanned here because of the value that I put here in my attribute row span. When I get back to my result, you can see that the first row being spanned is the same row friends that will show the importance of this span we are talking about, Mr. Chivale. So to do this, I will introduce one more heading here. I'm just going to copy and paste. So one more heading here. Okay. Where I'll say comment, for example. Where I'll say comment, for example. Then when I save this one, I want to run this and see what it looks like now. When I refresh, you can see here now that I have comment that I have here. Now, let me now do the span so that you see exactly what this is. So I'm going to span all the columns. I guess here there are how many rows do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll span all the rows, the 6 rows that we have. In fact, the 5 rows that we have. The only unfortunate part of it is that the column span and row span do not overlap. Okay, but let me try to do that. Okay, so when I go to where I'm spanning here, so I'll span all the 6, and then here I'll write okay, so class 2021. Okay, then save that. I go back here, refresh that, do like that. Okay, so it's spanning the ones that are down, unfortunately. Okay. So I'll go back. I want you to see how important that is. Okay. I'm going to have that removed. Don't worry with what I'm doing. Okay. Then I'll span here. Okay, to 6. I refresh that. Okay, you can see now that makes sense, Mr. Chibale.
Yes.
Mr. Chibale. Mr. Chibale seems to have run away. Okay, so unfortunate that he is not hearing me. Okay, but those that are able to hear me, you can see that it now has a use here, because it tells us that all students that are here are in the intake of 2020. Yes.
Okay.
So I want this done, and by next week we must have maybe a system running that I want you to go through. Okay. Because I don't want to have pressure in the end, so things have to start moving right now.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, so contact me tomorrow so that we do some secret talking.
Okay. All right.